Hey everyone, good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy terrific Tuesday to you. I hope that your day is blessed. Listen, this is Get Into It with Kimberly Willis. I am so excited to have you again for another week, and I'm just so excited for what's to come. If you don't know who I am, my name is Kimberly Willis, and I am your wellness boutique advocate. You may ask, what is a wellness boutique advocate? Is really to help you with all things cancership. So, and if it's with styling, if it's through your survivors wear, I have a t-shirt line with that, or if it's through motivation, I do that through my speaking and through my books. Did you know I have two books? One of them is called Walk Through Fire, which is my debut book here. But I also have another book which is called I'm Speaking, and I am included with 80 other women that gives inspiration, encouragement, and motivation. Like who else? Who needs encouragement? We all do. So I'm really, really excited about today's guest, and she is a joy to a lot of people, and I know she will be a total blessing to you. Our guest today is Sharon Davis-Cawthrone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She is a second generation U.S. Army veteran, and she is a stage 1 triple negative breast cancer survivor. We'll talk about what triple negative is. There is almost like 15 different breast cancers, and one of them is triple negative breast cancer, and it's really prevalent to a lot of women, especially those in the African American community. So I'm going to get ready to bring our guests in and bring on Sharon.
Hello,
How
hello,
are you?
family.
How
Hello,
are you doing?
Survivors Corner family.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you. I'm
And
excited to be here.
let's jump right into it. Tell
Mhm.
everyone, our listeners, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think you started right off the bat with one of the things that has framed my life is as a military brat. My dad was an Army vet, and he and my mom had several tours on their own.
Hmm.
But finally, one time back in the 70s, I guess that's dating me a little bit, we had as a family took a tour to Germany. And I think that's what really got me romanticizing about serving and what it meant to serve and what the camaraderie was about. And I didn't know that that seed had been planted
Hmm.
then about just what camaraderie really meant and
Yeah.
being in a place where you could serve. And so, that's kind of really how I've lived my life is really first and foremost through service. When from high school and into adulthood, I decided to join the military. I had really done that out of a passion to see the world, at
Hmm.
16,
Yeah.
17. I'm like, I want to see the world. By then, though, I had already, like I said, lived in Germany. I had been an exchange student to Japan, and I just wanted to see the world, really. And I thought that I could do both serve and see the world through the military and get my college paid for. That was really important to me. I had
Yeah.
already enrolled at Spelman and just really felt a blessing to be there. But I knew it was something with my parents. It was just it was not an affordable thing,
Hmm.
and they were willing to make the sacrifice, but I didn't want to see them do it. So I felt like I could do that by joining the military and getting my college paid for. And so along the way, I had got two deployments. One was to Panama, so I was there during Noriega's time. I don't know, again, that dates myself. And then I got sent to the first Gulf War. And that was really a trying time to be sent to the Gulf War. By then, I was a single parent. And again, my parents swooped right in. They were able to watch my son for that year, almost two, that I was deployed to the Gulf. Um, but then again, in coming back to the States, I think when we talk about fighting and getting in a place of really settling, I knew that I didn't want to have that kind of separation anymore from my family. So I came back out of active duty and got right back into college. Like my goals were set, and I
Yeah.
knew that that's what I was going to go for. Came back, got a job, and really put my tiny family back together again. And lo and behold, old love came back in my life and got married,
Oh,
and
wow.
went from there. And I have this great blended family now, 3 kids, 3 adult children, and my husband. And I like to tell people I've got 3 dogs too, but all in between there, I've built up a really great support. They've seen me reach a lot of milestones. I became a sergeant in the Guard by
Wow.
going through our primary leadership development course. And, through that, even it was again about finding that strength to be able to lead people, be able to get over your own fears and follow through on something. So I have to say that military career has really been an asset to me. But one of the things coming out of the military is that you want to get back to the world.
Yeah.
One of the things that we would say is that we want to come back to the world. And there really was an adjustment. I found that even though I had that great support system, there's a lot in returning back out of conflicts and things where you may need help to make that adjustment, and you may need help going through a career transition, may need help blending that family. But one of the life of the soldier is just to kind of suck it up and keep moving. And so I made those adjustments over time without a lot of input. So to that, I can say mentoring goes a really long ways. And that's why I'm really glad for this format.
Yes.
And to be able to at least tell a story and plant the seed that, you can have a support system, but you may have to create a support system.
That's amazing. First, I just want to say thank you for your service. Coming from a few uncles and different family members that has served in the military army as well, I definitely know what that entails, and the focus that you have to, the discipline that goes along with it. So on behalf of all of our Rosas here, we thank you for your service. You talked about something, you said about adjustment, and I want to highlight for the first time, because you said that you have never shared this testimony before publicly, let alone on a platform like this. So I am just excited that we have the exclusive.
Yes, you've got the exclusive.
Yes. And even though it's something that it's hard and very personal to highlight, however, we both realize the power of our testimony. So I'm just thankful for you just to get ready to share our testimony. Before you share that, I want to show that you have a visitor here. You got Stephanie here who's there.
Stephanie.
She said, "Yay, Sharon, so glad to see you, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you for joining."
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Thank you, my love.
So get into it. Tell us a little bit about your testimony. How did you find out that you had stage 1 triple negative breast cancer?
Yes. So my family really supports my husband's career as well as mine. I'm more portable, and we had come to Detroit. We had been here about 2 or 3 years from the last place where he was working in higher ed in West Virginia. And we got into one of the reasons that I use the VA, which is the Veterans Administration Health System, is that it keeps my record straight. I just want a low stress on some of the moves. And so the Veterans Administration also has a women's center. And so with the women's center, I had been going in regularly. It was an easy way for me to keep up from some of our moves with my medical issues. So I would just basic medical things. And at one point, I had been put on a 6-month kind of watch list to
Okay.
come back every 6 months for my mammogram because they had seen something, but couldn't really tell if it was anything worth noticing. And this was in the 2-year stretch from the time we had come to Detroit. And one of the things I want to bring up with ladies is there's a lot of African American women, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of women, period, that have been told they have dense breasts. And
Yes.
I didn't know what that meant. I
Mhm.
just, I'm just going along for the ride. Like, I didn't ask any questions. They didn't see anything. I thought everything was always fine because all of those 6-month checkups were just to look for changes. And there hadn't been any for really about 3 years. And on this one visit in October of 2019, they said, well, you know what? We actually want you to come back and we're going to do a biopsy. Well, still, happy me was like, well, you know what? I don't know what that means, but that means that whatever they see, they're just going to confirm that it's nothing, is
Mhm.
what I'm thinking about this biopsy. And we had just finished vacation by Bible school
Mhm.
at church, and we were cleaning up, and I was already it'd been a month later, and I was ready to start planning again. And I got
Yeah.
a call from the doctor, and you just don't forget where you are
Yeah. That
when you
call
get that
changes everything.
call.
Yeah.
And that call came through, and the doctor said, well, because the VA was coordinating with Carmanos, she
Mhm.
asked, had Carmanos called me? And I said, no, which is the cancer center here in Detroit. And I said, no, I hadn't gotten a call. She says, well, I'm sorry to tell you that your biopsy came back positive for breast cancer, and we need you to make a second appointment. And I'm like, you're just stunned.
Yeah.
But I was in the right place. When we talk about adapting, I was just like, Lord, I couldn't have been anywhere else but to
Mhm.
hear this, but at church,
Yeah.
which really, after my military career, I spent several years working administration at churches. That's,
Mhm.
all I did, administration and operations. And I was like, what better place but to find me here in the chapel? And I didn't really tell anyone. I went back into my military shutdown mode at that time, I
Mhm.
believe, in retrospect, and just said, well, what's next?
Mm.
And I think the hardest thing coming out of that, because I really had been able to handle any other kind of health thing, was asking for help.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
not only just asking for help, it was more about informing my family.
Mhm.
And I think the hardest call was informing my mother. As much support as my family gave to me, for some reason, this just seemed like this was going to be a real big burden. And it was really, really difficult to make that call to my mom to
Wow.
tell her that I'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. And she was on the plane
Wow.
right after
A
that.
mother's love. A mother's
Yes,
love.
yes. And when they told me, and this is another thing about getting that call and getting diagnosed and then starting to go back in to see the oncologist, you wind up with a whole alphabet soup of other physicians
Mhm.
after that. Um, the other important thing that happened for me was that I had a note taker come in
Mhm.
with me, which was my daughter. I didn't realize how much I'd be
Mhm.
missing as they talk to me, that it's very surreal that it's you this
Yeah.
time. And so it was very surreal. And so my daughter was my first person that would come in to all my appointments and take notes. And then my mother came along to be there for the surgeries and treatments.
Wow. That's definitely a lot. And I'm thankful that you did a few things, that you broke the mold from your military background as far as shutting
Mhm.
down.
Mhm.
So, because when you are going through something so challenging, even if you want to be private, you still have to be able to tell someone because you have to have a support system. Could you imagine going to the doctor's office without having that note taker? Some cancer survivors are like that. They may not have a support system to have that. And it's so important to have different organizations or different organizations to be able to provide such a service, because when you are sitting at the doctor's office and they are explaining your treatment plan, because until you get all your testing, you know something that when you have that first sit down with your doctor, they're going to tell you the stage and everything. You don't get that
Yes.
right away all the time. You have to have
No.
so many different testing, because then they have to see, you know, how progressed is the cancer, what stage is it in, so then they can
Yes.
develop the alphabet soup that you said about a team of doctors. You don't just have one person, you
No.
literally have a team. I think I had about 5 to 6 different doctors and
Yes.
counting that, you know, was a
Yes.
part of my treatment plan. And it's so important to have either a recorded conversation, you record it on your phone, or to even
Yes.
have someone to do that, because all you hear is want, that Charlie Brown thing, because you don't hear them saying anything, because you're just really trying to wrap your mind around, okay, I
You
got
are.
cancer and I
You
want
are.
it out. And some may not even realize, like, okay, once you get diagnosed, treatment's not that quick. Sometimes it could be a few months before you
Yes.
even start your actual treatment. And you
Yes.
want it out like yesterday, because you
You
have
do.
something that's invading your body that's trying to kill you. And you're like, okay, it's got to go. So, our topic, we're talking about fighting for you as a whole. And
Mhm.
how fitting is it? Because I didn't know before making this topic that you were in the military. So you
Mhm.
know exactly what fighting for you means. So
Yeah.
talk to us about what fighting for yourself looks like.
Fighting for myself, what it still meant for me was all about my mindset.
Mhm,
It really did, because I felt that if I had my mind together about the direction I wanted to go with this treatment, then I would get that support system. I would attract what I needed. I would be in alignment then with what God had in mind for me through this journey.
mhm,
And so one of that mindset for me meant having a small circle around me. I
mhm,
really did still have a very tight circle. It was whatever influenced me, it was mostly positive. I just kept positive influences around me. I did read up on triple negative breast cancer,
mhm.
which is, people are like, well, what is that? And why is why is it important about the dense breast? And so the dense breast means that it's really difficult to see. There's more of a fatty tissue, and it's more difficult to
Mhm.
see what's happening in your breast. And it was actually another triple negative breast cancer survivor, Joan London, who was a broadcaster back in the day, who used her celebrity to bring to light that people that had denser breasts should have more of an opportunity to have
The screenings and things
more
like that.
screening, more previews of what's happening. So if you've been told you've had dense breast, you can ask the doctor, what else can we do? May I have another screening? Have we looked at it in all ways? Whether that's already a 3D or an ultrasound or something.
Mhm.
She has pushed for laws, and we do have one in Michigan, that if you have a dense breast, you are able to get more screening. And most times your insurance will cover it because of that. So it meant actually asking more questions. It meant
Mhm.
getting more information, and, like I said, staying positive, keeping my circle close, and following the treatment plan.
Mhm.
That was really important. I felt very fortunate to have early detection. Um, and I think that that's one of the things that women really need to say. You're busy enough to take care of you. If all the busyness in the world doesn't matter if you don't stop to take care of your health. I was
Absolutely.
actually in treatment with a fellow veteran that would tell her story, and her story was that she was being misdiagnosed, maybe the first couple of years, the first couple of months of her illness that was
Mhm.
coming on. They told her she had fibromyalgia and ignored a lot of other things that might have clued her that it was breast cancer, like changes in her breast. And she also did not go in for her mammogram.
Wow.
And one of the things in fact, she had put it off for 3 years. And by the time we're sitting in there receiving our treatments, um, she's she is at a stage 4 where I'm at a
Oh,
stage 1. And they did for her, it was about fighting and being grateful. They had to do neoadjuvant chemotherapy for her, meaning before they could even uh, do surgery on the tumor, they had to shrink it. Where for me, following my treatment plan, there was surgery, and then I went into I believe I had 16 rounds of chemo and 24 rounds of radiation,
wow.
because triple negative breast cancer is very aggressive. In fact, it's one of the most aggressive types of cancer. It's
Mhm.
void of all the other markers that you might find in breast cancer. Like you said, there are about 15 or 16 different types of
Mhm.
breast cancer, and this one is void of the hormone markers.
Yes.
So, one of the things when you're diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, too, is that you go get a genetic test. That's part of the
Mhm.
treatment plan. And one of the things that I've learned is that, uh, you know, all cancer is genetic. The mutations have to do with your genes, all of us.
Mhm.
The thing about triple negative, it could also carry this BRCA gene that you heard of. A
Mhm.
lot of people, like Angelina Jolie, had the BRCA gene,
Mhm.
but basically that means she inherited. So we
Correct.
all have genes that mutate under cancer, but they may not be inherited.
Correct.
Yes. And so one of the things about information with the fight was that on my genetic test, they found that I did not inherit triple negative. So in that sense, it was an environmental
Mhm.
cause. There was no family member. There had been no one that had breast cancer. It was just everybody that it was like, where did this come from? We don't have that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Like, hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have that. What are you talking about? And I'm like, well, I have it. And
Mhm. Mhm.
everybody just pointed back. That's from that army. That's from serving in the military. That's what that was. That was the burn pits. That's the
Said
only
poor army's
place
getting
it come
beat up.
from. And I can't tell you that that those thoughts didn't cross my mind. But the reality was, how am I gonna fight this now? No
Yeah.
matter what the what genesis of it is, what am I going to do? How am I going to fight this? And there were a lot of, even with that small circle, it was like, have you done this? Have you tried this? I'm like, I'm following this treatment plan.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what the fight was.
You have brought up a lot of great gems. You talked about not putting it off. Early detection is key.
Hmm.
And irregardless of your age, because some believe that you have to be over 40 to get any type of cancer, especially even breast cancer. I was actually 34, diagnosed with stage 3, and I actually found it myself. And I also have dense breasts as well. So one of the things that I found out was, if you have dense breasts, and even if you don't know if you have dense breasts, we all, if you're 18 and up, you should be getting a yearly
Hmm.
OBGYN uh, 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 physical exam. And you should be able to ask them, okay, is my breast dense? They'll be able to tell you that. From
Yes.
there, if they say that you have dense breasts, like you said, with Michigan and other states, you can get additional screenings. Still check about yourself. Make sure that you're doing a self-exam. I'm such an advocate for making sure you do your monthly exams. That's what saved my life. So even though
Yeah.
mine was still stage 3, had I not did the self-exam because I was too young to get the technical mammogram,
Exactly.
it saved my life. It's so important to do that. And if you know something is wrong, don't put it off. Go see about it, because I know some individuals are scared to go and deal with treatment. And yes, treatment can be hard. However, death is bad. You know what I'm saying? You don't
Right.
come back from that.
Right.
So at least give yourself a fighting chance to make it and go on. And even when you talked about genetic testing, it's good to know your family history.
Yes.
Have those honest conversations, even if the cancer is not from your family, just to kind of know what you could be facing. I learned a lot about my family. Like I knew some things from my parents, but I learned things about my aunts and uncles. I learned things about cousins and other family members on pertinent information that was helpful to give the genetic testing individual, so then they can compile, because they compile this little tree for you, and you
Yes.
can really kind of see, okay, oh, my paternal side seems to have a lot of cancer things, and that can help you also get the screening you need early, that can
Yes.
help save your life if you know what's going on in your family. So family, here's my plea to you.
Yes.
Please be open about your trials and tribulations. So if there's something that's going on with you, if you got diabetes, if you have cancer, if you had something else, be very transparent, because it can save someone's life. I know sometimes we don't
Absolutely.
want people in our business. And yes, you do have to be very cautious of who you allow in your space, and to know your information. But to save a life is priceless. So make sure
Yes.
that you are very transparent. Tell your kids what's going on. Tell your loved ones again what's going on, because again, it can save a life. I want
Yes.
to show you have another guest on here. Miss Denise Davis. She said, "Hi, Sharon. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you
Hi.
for your
Thank you.
service." I
Thank
love you
you,
guys.
Denise.
Keep coming in, roses. And I talked about it in my previous show, but I wanted to talk about what a blue rose is. So you see
Mhm.
these roses behind me.
Yes.
And my mother also had cancer. So the name of my boutique that I had named after her was 49 Rose. And the reason why I did a blue rose, Rose was her first name, but then her favorite color was blue. But then I found out that a blue rose means attaining the impossible. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, that is perfect, because that really sums up, especially cancer survivors, about how we fight through different things, and our grit and tenacity, and how focused we are during our trial and tribulation. So if I mention you guys are my roses, that's why, because you are
Yes.
attaining the impossible. So let's move on. So you highlight a little bit about active treatment. So you said you had 16 rounds of chemo.
Yes.
So that's around 4 to 5 months span that you
Yes.
had to do.
Yes. And
And
I had ACT, so
yes,
I had the
it's a
tough one
popular
that came.
cocktail.
Yep, I had the big cocktail, and what that means is that the hardest one that they have that comes on the end is what they call the red devil.
Yes, I hate it.
And that's the Taxol. So the first part of that is a dose dense adriamycin
Mhm.
and
Cytoxin.
Cytoxin, and I also got the Neulasta with
Oh,
that.
yes.
So what
So
what
let's break down that for a second, because some people
yes.
may not know what that is. So Neulasta is a device that goes on your arm or on your stomach or side or whatever, and it injects this medicine because your immune system is suppressed, right? To get all this cocktail that you have to get. So in order for you to not get as sick, so you can then take your other treatments, that's what a Neulasta is. Go ahead.
Yes. Prior to that, and I guess I should back up a little bit. So now this is all happening pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got diagnosed and when I went through my surgeries. When I started chemotherapy, it was December 31st,
Oh,
2019. So
right before the storm.
so I have to say, I was like, what, why wait? Why wait? Let's just get on in here and knock this out.
Mm-hmm.
And went on in there and started that treatment. Even prior to that, though, you do get a port put in.
Mm-hmm.
And the port is another procedure so that the chemotherapy can come through quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to, one of the things, because they're going to give you this really intense amount of drug therapy, your veins could collapse from it.
Absolutely.
And so, as opposed to trying to find your vein, which um, one of the when you actually go through it, I was in a bay, so there were several of us that would receive our chemo treatments at a time. And I would see there were some people who did not want to, hold on for a moment. I don't know what, I think my battery's going low.
As you're doing that, I'm going to talk about and break down what triple negative is. So triple negative, most cancers is either it could be driven off of estrogen or it could be driven off of progesterone. So most females carry estrogen, and like even in my case with cancer, mine was driven off of that. So one of the ways that they do it, after you have your active treatment, they will give me medicines to block the estrogen from, because that's what feeds the cancer. But in Sharon's case, hers is a little bit different. Hers is not driven off of estrogen, is also not driven off of the progesterone or the HER2 gene as well. So that's what triple negative is. All three of those is not driven off that. So it's a little bit harder to treat post-cancer. So they still have to go through the chemo and radiation if that's part of their treatment plan. But after their post-treatment plan is a little bit different. Go ahead and finish what you were sharing with everyone.
I believe I was talking about where about having the port in and being able to get that chemotherapy, that drug treatment, weekly without having to lay out your veins, where I saw it was very difficult once they had actually your veins had collapsed. Then they have to go backwards in a way. And I believe that one of the things that I really learned early on was tackling fear. Prior to having children, I had not been in the hospital. I had never had a surgery. I didn't have a broken bone. I had not had any overnight stays. So overcoming the fear and a lot of the notions that go in your head, part of staying positive too, was about the fact that I was healing and not getting poisoned. You would hear a lot of that with people with chemotherapy saying, this poison is going in. When I was talking about that red devil, that Taxol, the paclitaxel, it's actually made from a tree and the root of the tree. And so when you think about some of these drug therapies, do your homework a bit and really change your mind about what this treatment is. This is attacking something that needs to get out of my body. And something has to come in for it to get out. And even though the surgery had removed the tumors, in fact, they thought there was just one. And when they went in, this was nothing I could have felt. It was nothing I could have seen. Without the mammogram, it would not have been detected. And once they actually did the surgery, they found that there were two tumors. In fact, there was a multifocal tumors, and they were just deeper and deeper that I wouldn't have ever been able to see. And so that again is why we really want to stress going in, no matter what the cost, to get the pre-treatment, because it's really the regret that you feel and the anger that you feel from not getting that, and be farther along in the fear factor of a larger tumor or all the other treatments, I think. And that's what you want to avoid by being proactive. I think I did see a lot of veterans that were just angry, particularly my friend that I was talking about. She was just very angry at having not caught this sooner and not done things for herself that she should have. And I really had to release all of that. I was upset for being sick. I didn't know quite, what am I supposed to do with this? What
why did I get chosen for this?
I think Les Brown had even said it once too. It was like, you don't really say, why me, Lord? Because he'd say, well, who would you prefer that I put this on, So I never asked that question. It was like, well, thank you, Lord, for this miracle that you're about to perform. And to me, all those miracles were in the hands of the doctors. It was in the hands of the Carmanos Cancer Center, where somebody was able to detect it. That's what I mean about staying positive. It was really about staying in a whole bubble of gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Zell Randall who's popped in on Facebook. She said, "Hey, sister." She's a
Hey.
fellow breast cancer survivor, and she was actually our guest last week. So
Yes,
she's a
yes.
two-time breast
Thank you,
cancer
Zell.
survivor. Listen, so you said your treatment for at least the chemo part spanned for about 4 to 5 months.
Yes,
Now, you said your treatment started December 31st of 2019. So that meant that it extended into the pandemic. So
yes.
tell me what it's like to not only fight cancer, because that's already a job in itself, but
Mhm.
then now you got to fight through getting into the hospitals because it changed.
It
Things are
did.
shut down. You have to wait in this line and ask all these different questions before you even get your treatment, and then be worried, are you
Yeah.
going to get COVID while you're in active treatment and your immune system is already suppressed? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I was still determined to follow the plan. I
Mhm.
said, Lord, again, just being in that deep gratitude of knowing that this was caught early
Mhm.
and that so many hurdles of my fears, particularly about surgery, not one, but two surgeries had been overcome. I was like, yeah, this COVID thing, I'm just gonna mask up and I'm going to show up. Nobody called and told me not to come. So I would there were people who did delay their treatment, but I was like, "Oh no, 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 no.
Yeah, you want that
That's
thing out.
that's not about to happen here because I believe that it was just again, it was being in alignment with
Mhm.
whatever the Lord's plan was. I really felt at peace about showing up. Now, one thing I did lose was being able to have my family come in with me.
Yeah.
So now I am I had probably only done a few treatments where my mom and my husband and my daughter, we could all be there and we could just talk and laugh
Mhm.
and it was something to take your mind off of the fact that you actually are going through this treatment.
Mhm.
But then just to face it, to go in now and the halls were empty.
Yeah.
The bay only had a few people in there that I think were still in shock too, that
Mhm.
should I even be here? But I have to tell you, I just had just the most exceptional care. The nurses were doubled up in their mask, and they were doubling up me with their mask, and they're like, "This is probably the safest place you could be," and
Shout
they
out to
were just
Hermanos.
cheerful. I was actually going to begin my volunteering there in the oncology department
Mhm.
of the VA, and all of those things got halted. So you were really just there with the patients and the physicians.
Wait,
And
you said you were volunteering before you had cancer?
yes, I had just
Wow.
began I had begun to volunteer at the VA, and then I was going to focus once I had gotten diagnosed,
Mhm.
rather in
Wow.
oncology. Yes, and I do have to say something about even if you are a military veteran and you're going for care, I did have a choice. My husband has insurance, and I have insurance through the VA. One of the things of going through there that I did not have a stress on was any of the cost of care. And
Mhm.
I know that that is why some people can also delay what they
Mhm.
have to do is because of the cost. So I again sit in that bubble of gratitude, knowing that it was because of my service, it was because of having this link with the VA that even the cost of care um, was not a stress for me, and that just can't be overlooked about
Mhm.
pre-treatment, or at least preventative items. Is just going in for that mammogram could also spare you some of these elongated treatments that
Yes.
happen with a breast cancer diagnosis.
I'm glad you mentioned that because sometimes there's miscommunication, I will say, about the care that veterans receive.
Hmm.
We see on the news sometimes about those who come from the war, and they go through different mental health challenges, and it seems like they're not getting the resources that's needed. So
Right.
it's good to hear something positive that's coming out of the VA, and to be able to give you the care that is needed to be able to first do the screening
Right.
and then catch it, but then also take the step further and give you the care during a pandemic.
During a
With that.
pandemic. Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
shout out
it
to
was
all of
marvelous
the
there.
survivors out there who is still going through, because it's still different right now. I
It
still have to
is.
go to the hospital every month for a shot to prevent having cancer as well. And it's not as locked down as it was, but
Right.
it's still extra step that
It
wasn't there
is.
prior to the pandemic. So shout out to all the survivors who is getting their active treatment right now, or even their post treatment, and still has to go to the hospital for various testings, because it's not easy. You don't want to have another thing added to your plate. So shout out to you guys with
Yes.
all of that. You had I was getting ready to do this, and it's like you was just prophetic. You already knew I was going to talk about finances with that.
Oh,
I wanted to get into that because that is a very real topic for a lot of people.
mhm.
Sometimes they won't even go to the doctors because
Yes.
of co-pays, and some may
Yes.
not have insurance and things like that. But there are programs that's out there, and different support groups that's out there. If you go to my website, survivorscorner.net, if you go under the support groups tab, you'll see the different places where you can get the support groups to talk about what's going on, but then they also offer different resources, such as getting to the hospital for your treatments, as well as help absorbing some of those costs. So it's very important. So again, and I put my information up at the end with that.
Right.
And just to give you an idea how much these things cost. When I had to get an MRI, a CT scan, and my lumpectomy surgery, it was $35,000 for just those three things.
Yes.
That's not including chemo. That's
No.
not including additional surgeries such as the port that you need, or the new
Yes.
LASTA that you need, or the radiation that you need, or the care that you still need. That was $35,000. So talk about how to deal with finances and cancer.
Right. Right. Medical bills are one of the main things where people go into debt. And really, it's not even just the bills, it's the loss of income. There are
Mhm.
some people, when you go into treatment, we've seen all those old school movies where somebody goes in for chemotherapy treatment and they're nauseous. And well, now just to add to the cost, they have anti-nausea medication that they give
Mhm.
you. They also infuse Benadryl into some
Yes.
of the treatment to cut down on the itching and all that stuff that
Mhm.
happens in between. So you're getting a medication that you make that's just part of the way it goes nowadays. And one
Mhm.
of the things when we talk about um, those finances, first and foremost, if you don't have your own savings and you are not inside of a medical,
Yes.
um, you don't have the medical care. One of the things that this even COVID forced people to do is go get medical care. And I'll speak at
Mhm.
least to veterans that hadn't known that they were eligible for medical care through the VA. COVID actually forced a lot of them into looking for ways to get that medical care and see if they qualified for the medical care. There is also, as we know, the HCA. We have a healthcare act that set up a board where you can go and look for healthcare providers for yourself. But I'll go back to the savings part, and
Mhm.
this will tie in a little bit more about what I do and some of the passion that I have behind what preparation with your own personal savings
Mhm.
looks like, and what preparation looks like. Um, should at one point the inevitable happen. Someone I think said, someone died unexpectedly. It was like, well, you know what? We should expect that's going to happen one
Yeah.
day, just not by this,
Yeah.
and not at this time. And one of the things, even early on, that I had done with veterans was coach them on getting their own benefits, how that they could qualify for benefits. So that has been a long-term volunteerism thing for me through the VA with veterans, to have them get their DD 214s, to make sure they include their family in their decisions and include their family being able to receive their entitlements, so that when the time comes that they make a transition, it'd be easier for their family. So that's one thing that the pandemic, and again, through all of my work and volunteerism has shown me, is that your personal savings is the one safety net that you can be sure of.
Yes.
And then again, talk about your issue. Talk about, like you said, there's Gilda's House. There's so many other resources that are out there to support you. But I can say that first and foremost, you'll be looking at a lot of your own personal savings. And that's one of the things that I do full time, is talk to people about, getting prepared. I'm a financial coach from passion and from what I call my own bot sense. That's the best sense, right?
Yes.
And it's that I saw my parents always have to be in a position on middle income wages to help the family out whenever somebody got sick, whenever somebody passed away. It was always that my parents not just had their jobs, they took my brother and I to extra jobs where we cleaned buildings. We always had something extra. So I'm not one of those people that's like, yeah, just, go out there and get a good job. No, from what you have, get a savings program together. And if you don't know how, you need to find a coach. You need to talk to somebody. Athletes, to become premier athletes, they go get a coach. And you might say, that's not for me. But I don't know how many times you step in a gym and look at all those machines out there and say, I don't know how to touch them. I don't know what to do. And what do?
You need someone to guide you.
You get a trainer, and having that. And we think about those for all the simple things, like getting a trainer. It's like, those are the obvious. But when it comes down to the what ifs and our money, it's so personal. And for some people, it's so painful.
Yes.
It's embarrassing. It's really intimate. It's like, how do I even begin to talk to somebody about my mistakes? And again, this is what we were talking about with regret for seeking treatment. I mean, I think as a whole, the wellness piece, it weaves right in. Your health and your wellness, your faith and your finances, they all tie in, because you're not separate from those stresses. You are, all those stresses bind in together, and they're all inside of you. And there's a book out there that says the body never forgets.
The body never forgets. Wow.
The body never forgets. And so you have all these stresses, and one way to eliminate those and buoy your health factor, like stay in a place where you can have this level of gratitude, is to seek the resources, get the help. And that's where I'd say start first for the what ifs, and work with somebody on a personal savings plan, but also put those cornerstones of your health insurance in place. And may I even talk about having your life insurance in place? One thing I already knew, and let me tell you about how I actually got started. Like I said, I love all my parents. I'll talk about them all day. But my dad passed away at 58.
Wow.
And my mom, I am just so thankful to still have her. She is 83.
What a blessing.
Okay. That is a long span of time, ladies, for you to think about being without your life partner. But it's also a long span of time that ladies live too, just in general. We just outlive men, so must be some of that care that we're doing.
Right.
But I got involved with helping people with their finances, because when my dad passed away at 58, all of a sudden I found myself helping my mom more with her finances. And he left her with a little bit of something. And I thought that I could take that somewhere and help her invest. But I found out that little bit of something was just that. It was a little bit. And I was really angry at what was available for her.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I found out was, that he had life insurance through his job. That barely paid. Now, mind you, he got sick before he died. And thankfully that life insurance paid and came through. But then when we tried to get that on her, that's when I learned about all the stipulations. When they ask you all these questions, what's
Mm-hmm.
one of those questions? Like, have you ever had cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Have you had cancer in X amount of years? And that will disqualify you. It's
Yes.
like from life insurance. So even if the inevitable happens, after the accident, as we know, isn't the time to go get auto insurance.
Right.
Okay.
You got to do this
That's
thing
when you want
before.
it. That's when you want it. That's when you're thinking. But it's the same thing with
Yes.
being able to care. It's like, how do you handle those what ifs, and how do you take that stress off? Because your body is going to know when
Yes.
all of these things are in place and you are in alignment with all those. I was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you get that call, whether you're in the chapel at church, whether you're in your car, um, whether you're at your desk at work, and now a lot of people working remote at home, whenever you get that call,
Mm-hmm.
it's that is not the time you want to, that's the time you focus on whether you have some of these things in place as far as the inevitables may come.
Yes.
But that is unfortunately the time that putting some of those things in place may not be available to you.
Yeah. Those are all great gems that you just dropped down. It's important, ladies and gents, to make sure that you don't put off something that's going on, but then also don't shy away if you don't have the resources. Again,
Mhm.
there are programs that's out there to help you. Just take the time to invest in yourself. That's
Mhm.
what's key there, because again, you have to plan for the what ifs. Having a plan really helps
Yeah.
catapult you to what you need in the future. You cannot prepare for every little thing.
No.
However, you have a jump start
Yeah.
versus being left behind. It's
Yeah.
like someone who runs track. They have track shoes, and then they have the little starter block to help
Yes.
launch them forward. It is the same type of tool, but just in a different way. So even if you have to just slowly commit to
Yes.
$10 a week, putting it aside, or say, hey, I'm not going to get fast food. I'm going to take that money. I'm going to
Yes.
set that aside. Those things will help you financially for those things, or even getting the insurance. Some people say, well, the insurance people just take all my money. Well, insurance also helps too. Like, I had critical care illness, and that helped me to where I didn't really have to go in my savings. So, but I still had to go in my savings afterwards when that ran out, and then I still had to get treatment. That's when my savings help kicked in with all this.
Yes.
So it's so very important. We are nearing the end of
I
our
know. I can't
Oh
believe
my
it.
gosh, it's just like it just ran. Zell said, ladies, I am so proud of you. Please continue to share your stories. People need to hear what you went through, and your story is helping so many people. Thanks,
Oh,
sis.
God
I'm so
bless you.
thankful with that. I
Yeah.
want to put up your information. This is how we could contact our financial coach, guys. We need a
Yes.
financial coach. So tell us how we can reach you.
Yes, I have a strong and growing LinkedIn presence, and so
That's
you
how
can
we met.
find me. Yes, that's how we met. We met actually when you had your boutique open there.
Yeah.
Yes, so you can find me there. You can just search Sharon Davis-Cawthrone, and I tell people I married that last part. So Sharon Davis-Cawthrone. You can find me on Instagram at Davis-Cawthrone, no hyphen there. And then on email, it's just my first name and last name, Sharon Cawthorne1 at Gmail. And I also am available to be reached by phone. I have an 800 number because, I do work remotely. I just love hearing people's stories and seeing where I can be a resource for them at 877-228-0462. You can call that number. You can also text to that number. And any other things that you want to hear about health and wellness, and however I can help you on your journey. I like talking to people and hearing their stories, because there's always transferable skills. And that's what we're doing with telling our health and wellness story and our cancer journey. You are borrowing the best from something we've been through to help you make decisions for whatever your journey may be. And I believe that this storytelling is a very, very genuine way to tell our stories and to link in with people and to get the coaching that you may need when your journey comes. It'll give you the strength to go forward.
Awesome. Zell had mentioned, she's like, share the information on the Breast Friends support group. So on Facebook, there is a support group called Breast Friends Support Group. If you don't know how to get there, let me switch and show you. You can go on my website, survivorscorner.net, and again, go under the support groups tab. You'll see Living Brave Through Breast Cancer. And then from there, you can also see how you can get to the different support groups that we have. So we have the Breast Friends, there's different galas and things like that. Also on my website, again, you can find resources such as the Survivor Wear, different inspirational clothes, as well as getting styling. So, you know, sometimes we need help with that, with knowing how to piece ourselves together with that. So you can find me at, again, survivorscorner.net, and you can find me on Instagram, survivors_corner, Facebook, Survivors Corner, and on YouTube, Survivors Corner. Listen, please like, comment, and share on this broadcast. This is aired live right now on LinkedIn. It's live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has watched this program. We thank you for your support. I cannot wait until next week. We have another guest, a lady, Eileen Pierce. We're going to call this one the First Ladies Edition. So if you don't know, I'm also a First Lady as well. And so is Eileen Pierce. And we get to talk about her cancer journey. And just to give you a sneak peek, she had cancer 3 times, guys. 3 times.
Wow.
So she gets to talk about her fight with that. And Sharon, I'm so thankful for you.
Well, I am just so grateful for this opportunity to share and for our meeting. This has been an awesome experience for me, and I hope someone is blessed through this, and feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. So again, until next week, guys, I'm going to show her information again. You can contact her by phone, you can text or do by voice, 877-228-0462. And you can find her on LinkedIn, because again, that's how we linked up. Listen, don't underestimate the power of your when you post, or even just connecting. Like, step out on faith. Don't be shy. Actually connect with individuals, because you get to meet and have connections like we have now, because outside of this show, we're going to continue our connection. So again, to find her, you can find her at Sharon Davis-Cawthrone, or on Instagram, Davis-Cawthrone, or email Sharon Cawthorne, the number 1 at gmail.com. So until next week, guys, we are nearing the last 2 minutes. I thank you all for joining. I'll see you all next week. Have a blessed week, guys. Take care.